Welcome back to another episode of Living with FASD, Candid Conversations with Patti Kasper. I'm your host. Today I sit down with Barb Clark, a beloved trainer and coach in the FASD community with both professional and living experience with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. She's known for her down-to-earth style and blend of honesty, humor, and practical wisdom when training with compassion and clarity on tough topics like raging, lying, stealing. She's trained thousands across the US and Canada. So are you ready? Let's dive into this candid conversation. Barb, welcome to Living with FASD. I am so glad to have you finally for an episode. We've been talking for quite a while about this.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, and dancing in the same FASD circles, you and I, for years and years and years, and we finally meet today.
Yes, I'm so happy to meet you finally. I mean, we've talked on the phone, but now I get to see your face.
It's always good to have those three match up, the voice, the face, and the personality,
Yes,
right?
totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So you and I have a lot in common in terms of being in the field of social work and adoption and foster care
Hmm.
and training, doing both training and coaching,
Hmm.
right? We're just walking two parallel paths in different parts of the country.
Yes, totally, we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So, wow, how many years were you working with foster and adoptive parents?
Oh, I would say I've probably professionally been doing it for at least 15 years now.
Okay.
I've been an adoptive parent for 26 years,
Okay.
involved in the community, but working in it for probably about 15, I think.
Okay. So what was it about that lived experience that made you say, I'm going to get paid to do this?
Well, it was just mostly a lack of the right supports.
Yeah.
I was floundering as an adoptive parent when my kids were young and nothing was working and
Yeah.
begging for help and looking for help. And so when we finally, started to figure out that we needed to do things a lot differently and stuff like that, I started to realize I got to try to help other people not have the same
Hmm.
struggles. And kind of this was back like before Facebook or online support groups were really a
Yeah.
thing. And it was kind
Yeah.
of when blogging had just started to become a thing. And I
Yeah.
got connected to a group of other adoptive moms that were
Yeah.
bloggers that were, kind of blogging and, a lot that was focusing on FASD, but other things within the adoption community.
Hmm.
And it kind of became our support group in a way. And so it just kind of started naturally becoming something that I started to do professionally.
Okay.
Wasn't really
So,
intentional.
yeah. So I'm having a couple thoughts as I listen to you speak. And one is that probably you learned about FASD before the staff that was supposed to be helping you did.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And how did they respond to you when you said, "Ha, this is it"?
Well, I'll say the one great thing was that our pediatrician was always very supportive. She was like, "Oh my gosh, I think you're right." And she knew a little bit, not a lot, but she knew some of the right people to connect me to somehow through like an internship or a fellowship she had had.
Mm,
And then, but I just, but what I appreciated about her and any professional that earns my respect are the ones that say, I don't know enough about this instead of faking it.
hmm.
I don't like it when they act like they know about it. And then when I start working with them, I realize, no, you really don't know
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
talking about here. And so the two paragraphs in your med school manual or your whatever manual they
Yeah.
went to,
Or your 10 minutes in social work
Mhm.
class, your 10
Yes,
minutes in med school.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Yeah. 30-minute
that,
lecture,
yeah,
bim, boom, bam. You know it all
yep.
now.
Yep. But I really
Yeah.
I came to start to appreciate the professionals who said, I have really limited knowledge on this, but I do want to learn more. And so
Hmm.
please share with me what you learned. And I
Yeah.
appreciated that. Like I would do things even with my OBGYN for my annual visit every year. I would bring her a different FASD book. And the first one I ever brought her was Bonnie Buxton's Damaged Angels book.
Yes.
And she called me up, like, and she was a very prominent physician, physician in the Twin Cities there in Minnesota. and a top doctor you can't even get into is a new patient now. And she called me up about 3 or 4 weeks afterwards, and she had read it on her vacation at her cabin, and she was like, Barb, that book blew me away. I didn't
Wow.
know, like I know that that we shouldn't use alcohol when pregnant, but I didn't know this is what happens.
Yeah.
And I was like, and she's like, can I mail it back to you? And I said, absolutely not. You're going to give it to every OBGYN in your practice and every
Hmm.
doctor you know. And I'm
Yep.
like, please help me
Yep.
spread this word because
Yeah.
you're right. You don't know, and so many professionals
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. I have a case of books from my book, Sip by Sip, which is really adults coming to realize they've got it, right?
Right. Hmm.
And I give a copy away, having recently moved to North Dakota,
Hmm.
every time I go meet a new medical professional, I don't care what specialty it is, they get a
Yep.
copy.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm also thinking back to the foster care days.
Yes.
I remember a line in the training, and it didn't matter if it was the county training or the agency training, but it was always stated the kids we place with you will be about half of their chronological age.
Mm.
And they're so proud of themselves for telling people that fact. Not once did they ever indicate what that meant in terms of walking that out. And
Hmm.
what do you do with that knowledge?
Right, right. Well, I'm not going to lie. The fact they even said that is shocking. I've not
Really?
really run into
Oh,
many adoption and foster care professionals that will even share that fact.
yeah. Yeah.
So, so they were a step ahead of many areas that I've seen and worked with. But yeah, giving us information without telling us what it means and what to do with it
Yeah.
is not very
Yeah.
helpful.
And
Um,
and 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 it's like the right hand never talked to
mhm.
the left hand,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yes.
Because all when I was on call,
Hmm.
it was the foster care and adoption teams that their social workers would handle trade week by week for
Hmm.
all the programs.
Right.
And so the young adult program, the transitional age, 18 to
Hmm.
21, they would be in apartments and they would lose their keys, need a ride, not have money for an Uber,
Hmm.
all these things, lock themselves out, and they'd call at 2 o'clock in the morning. And most of the social workers were like,
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
not an on call, that's not an emergency, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And but not once did they ever connect the dots and realize the
Yes.
reason why this young adult is responding to the situation as an 11-year-old
Yes.
is because that's how old they really are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
and once you have that, then the frustration goes way down.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You still may not get out of bed and go rescue their butts, but
You're not
but
going to
at
be
least
mad
you
at
give them
America.
steps of things to do in a much more compassionate manner.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, but you don't have any clue what it
Right.
means.
Right.
Yeah. Ran into that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. After 25 years, I'm so glad I'm not doing foster care anymore. It really is a young person's job. It truly is. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a hard job, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I went to a NACAC conference, I think before, which is now Families Rising. But
Yes.
I think the conference I went to, I think was before you joined their team. I think it was in Long Beach.
In Long Beach. I was actually at that conference. I think it
Were
was
you?
in 2015, maybe, is my guess.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I was at it actually as a on a scholarship and as a volunteer who led support groups and back then
Okay.
NACAC, which was called the North American Council on Adoptable Children.
Yeah.
One of the programs that they have had for decades was a parent leadership training where they were training
Hmm.
adoptive, foster, and kinship parents to lead support groups.
Yeah.
And there was a foundation who sponsored this. And so a friend of mine from Minnesota, where I lived at the time, we got a scholarship to go to the conference and to attend this parent leadership training. And Diane Martin Hushman was the staff person at NACAC back then who led that program. And
Okay.
she retired that next year, and I was recruited to, apply to fill her shoes, which is
Okay.
impossible. She was an amazing woman
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
social work field. But anyway, so that's when I started working there, was almost 10 years ago.
That was a phenomenal conference.
Yeah, it was a great
Yeah.
conference.
Yeah.
It was the first one I ever
It's
attended.
the
Yeah.
only one that I ever attended, but
Oh, okay.
you probably saw me even though we didn't interact.
Probably.
The one with the black service dog.
Oh, okay. If I had a better memory, I probably would have remembered it back
Yeah.
then, but yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I remember was Dan Siegel was
Yes.
an ever-present
Hmm.
presence at that conference.
He was.
And I think God recycles things.
Right.
Sometimes he recycles faces.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Most of us have a doppelganger somewhere,
Hmm.
but he also recycles voices. And I really enjoyed Dan because you could close your eyes and pretend it was Matthew McConaughey speaking my psycho nerdy language.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, I do remember Dan Siegel at that. His keynote was
Yeah.
excellent that year.
Yeah. Lots
Yeah.
of good restaurants down there and the
Yes. Yes.
aquarium.
Yes. Well,
My service dog was not a fan.
and the Families Rising now in NACAC rebranded as Families Rising, and the
Mm.
annual conference is in a few weeks or a month or so. It's October 6th through the 8th in Orlando, Florida, and I'll be
Okay.
the closing keynote at it. Even though last week was my last week at Families Rising, I was the director of training there, worked there for almost 10 years, but now
Yeah.
I'm doing stuff on my own.
Yeah. So you just launched a training and coaching business,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, I
Which
did.
makes us competitors.
Hey, there's never enough of us out there, right?
Right? I
There's,
know.
I
I
mean,
know.
there's so many awesome trainers and coaches out there,
Yeah.
right? We've got Eileen
Yeah.
Devine, Nate Sheets, you,
Yes.
Jody Culp, me. There are some
Yep.
fun, Dan Dabowski, I
Yep.
mean, Jeff Noble. There is a lot of people out
Yeah.
there who are doing it, and we
Yeah.
can all stay pretty busy,
Right? More
especially.
than we know what to do
Well,
with.
the thing is, we should all be swamped, and there should be 4 million times
Yeah.
as many of us if we could get more professionals and
Yeah.
families to understand how
Yeah.
often they are seeing FASD, but they are not
Yeah.
identifying it appropriately.
Right. Right. I
Mhm.
just had a professional tell me the other day who went, it was a guest on the podcast that I recently interviewed when he and I were emailing.
Mhm.
He's like, well, have a lot of experience in the topic that you're asking about, but sadly, I don't have any experience with FASD. And I'm thinking, that's what you think.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
I can
Yes.
guarantee you're wrong.
Oh, it's so true. Oh my gosh. I just did a training 2 days ago virtually for a school district in Minnesota. And often when I'm training schools in particular, well, just about any professional group, at the beginning, I'll say, raise your hand if you've worked with many students with FASD or something. And, you'll see a spattering of hands go up, and sometimes it might be a third or a fourth or a half. You just never know. It depends on if
That
it's,
would be one tuned in
yep.
audience if that
Yeah.
many rose their hands.
Yes, you never know. It's usually not quite that much unless I'm doing all special ed or something. But
Yeah,
anyways, so then as I'm going along, I'm like, who's running out of fingers right now of students that the profile is matching? And by the end of it, almost
hmm,
everybody that comes to these training realizes, oh, I've worked with a ton of young
yeah,
people that have this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I often start with not counting not counting social acquaintances, right?
Mhm.
Followers
Mhm.
or people that you follow, not counting those people on the periphery, but
Mhm.
counting family, friends, acquaintances, coworkers,
Right.
community members. How many people do you know?
That have FASD?
How
Oh,
many
just
people do
people
you
you
know?
know in general.
How
Oh,
many people do you know?
right, right. Oh my
Divide
gosh.
it by 20,
Right. Hmm.
right? Except now, post COVID, it's divided by 15.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. It
That's how
is.
many people with FASD that you know,
Right. Exactly.
regardless of diagnostic status.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
And
All
it
the
blows
time.
people's minds.
Absolutely. It does. It is mind blowing.
Yeah.
when they don't know about it.
Yeah.
Once you know about it, you see it everywhere.
It's a bell that can never be unrung.
Exactly. Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think was the most frustrating piece working with various agencies, training them about FASD?
Oh, I was one of the things that has frustrated me the most, especially in the adoption, foster, and kinship world, is social workers who don't want to give this training to families because they feel like they won't adopt or foster the kids then.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
have run into that a lot, and I have this one vivid memory of standing up in front of this one adoption foster task force of child welfare professionals, and after my training. I had some people lined up and talking, and one of these workers was saying that to me, and I
Hmm.
said, I actually think that is criminal to do that. To not share this information
Hmm.
is harming children and
Yeah.
harming families.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it leads to more disrupted placements and more layers
Hmm.
of trauma for the child and potentially the families that they have stayed with.
Right.
And
Right.
so
It's
I
keeping them in the dark.
it's keeping them in the dark. And I acknowledge that some families then that are going through foster care or adoption pre-service training might choose not to adopt or foster once they learn about this. But those are the families that know their limits and know that they
Hmm.
cannot handle this. And
Which
we
is
need
to
to
be
respect that.
applauded.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need to
Yeah.
respect that. And I mean, I acknowledge, I know that it's really hard because we have a huge shortage. We need
Yeah.
more families to, in particular, to provide foster care and even
Yeah.
adopt, and especially for older children. But we need to do that with the right information for the families
Hmm.
so that they can start the journey out prepared and not screw
Yes.
up as much as my husband and I screwed up because
Oh,
not knowing how to
yeah.
deal with this brain, this hidden brain injury, we caused further trauma to our children
Yeah.
by using typical parenting strategies,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
putting her in the wrong programs, the wrong therapeutic interventions, and things like that. And
Yeah.
so I really try to kind of hammer that
Yeah.
pretty hard when I'm working with
Yeah.
professionals.
And by never realizing that your expectations are unrealistic,
Oh, exactly.
right?
Yes,
Not
expectations.
necessarily that they're way higher than they could
Hmm.
be,
Hmm.
but that there
Yeah.
needs to be workarounds
Yes, exactly.
in
And
order for the expectation to be met.
I talk about that a lot. I just finished
Yeah.
doing a training on technology safety for the Florida Center for Early Childhood, and I talk about how we have to adjust expectations. We are
Yeah.
not lowering them. We are adjusting them based on who this specific child or
Hmm.
adolescent or even adult is and how
Yeah.
their brain works.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll never forget working with a family. The child not only had FASD, but had a lot of digestive problems,
Mhm.
right? Which we know is part of FASD. The two run
Yes.
together.
Yes.
But the parents were like, I can't parent this child that way because then they'd all want parented that way.
Mhm.
It's got to be fair. And I'm like,
Mm,
do you make everyone deal with the dietary accommodations or just the child that needs it? Or
mhm.
just the one that needs it? How is it different?
Yes. Yes. Oh, exactly. I talk a lot to professionals and families about the
Mm,
difference between fair and equal also,
yes.
you know. And so, it doesn't, you should not, every family, whether it's FASD or neurodivergence or neurotypical stuff,
Hmm.
every kid is a unique
Yeah.
individual human being who has
Yes.
different strengths and different areas they need extra supports in.
Yeah.
And you should not parent every single kid in your family with the same strategies
Yeah.
because you need to
Cookie cutters
recognize
don't
that.
work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got to recognize that. And I talk a lot about how I want our families, all families, to sit and talk about all of our brains. I had friends being like, man, you're a brain geek years ago. I was like, thanks. Thank you. It's a good compliment to me. We started talking about my husband and I's brains and all of the kids. Here's what mom's
Mhm.
brain is really good at. I am a fast problem solver when math is not involved. You throw math in there and I'm screwed, and it's going to
Yeah,
take me hours to figure it out.
yeah,
But
yeah,
dad is the opposite. Dad is a wizard with
yeah,
math and numbers, but he is slow at figuring out how to solve a problem and think outside of the box, right?
yeah,
And so we started talking about that. And Akila has eagle eyes and can help us find anything. And she is the most observant, but she is a tornado and can't keep, you can't put things away. And you know what I mean? And we started doing that with
mhm,
every single kid in our family. We started to
yeah,
normalize that we all have things we are good
yeah,
at and things
yeah,
that we need extra help in. And because of
yeah,
that, we are going to parent you all differently,
yeah,
and it isn't equal, but it is fair based on your
yeah,
awesomeness.
yeah. And the love is identical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even
Yep.
if it looks different, it's the
hmm
same. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
hmm
yeah, that's awesome. I think one of the things I've been frustrated with when it comes to training, especially with agencies, there's the expectation of like 2 hours a month
Yeah.
or, 4 hours on a quarterly basis. And, you
hmm
know, you can't do the topic of fetal alcohol spectrum disorders
Nope.
in 2 or 4 hours.
No, you can't do it justice.
It needs to be done in a series
Yeah.
rather intensely,
Yes.
because if it's only two
Yep.
hours once a month,
hmm
the retention of that material
Right.
is very slim.
Right. Oh, absolutely. We got a grant at Families Rising to do FASD training in the state of Illinois, and I don't work there anymore, but they're contracting me to do this. So I'm in October 14th and 15th. I'm pretty sure that's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. I'll be
Mhm.
in Springfield, Illinois, and then on the Thursday and Friday, so that whatever I see, math, even just saying dates screws up my brain. I think it's 16th and 17th, I'll be in Chicago. And we're doing 2 full days of training in both of those locations
Oh,
and
that's
trying to
awesome.
kind of, and it's free. This foundation has funded the whole thing. So anybody, can attend that in
Yeah,
Illinois. It's for families and professionals, and we're trying to kind of use it to spur a movement within that
yeah,
state
yeah,
of, we're trying to get people from the substance use world, from probation,
yeah,
from prisons, from
yeah,
child welfare, from mental health, from
yeah,
medical, from all of the various
yeah,
areas of work that work with people, humans. I'm like, if you work with a human, you need to come.
yeah. And how good is it that you're trying to rope in corrections and
Mhm.
substance abuse as well?
Yes.
Because, people with FASD are in those fields as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
I was always so horrified listening to county workers
Mhm.
and I'm the first to acknowledge their caseloads are crazy. I would never work
Yes.
for a county system for that
Yes.
reason.
Yes.
But complaining about parents not being able to follow their plan to get their kid back
Right.
and assuming they must not care about their kids
Oh, right. Right. Oh,
and not realizing that
mhm.
alcohol oftentimes goes down generations within
Right.
the same family, and therefore
Right. Oh, yeah.
FASD is likely to also,
Yes. Yep.
and therefore the parents have the same
Mhm.
neurological challenges that the kids do.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
they need accommodations to make their plans work
hmm Oh,
and
yeah. And,
and to get the support they deserve.
absolutely. And we need these various professionals to really just understand the hidden disability aspect of how this brain
Mhm.
injury plays out because of the strong expressive language skills that most of
Mhm.
us with FASD have. We are so good at masking,
Yeah.
right? And even, even kids that are young people, people that are functioning at various places on the spectrum, the majority of them are really good at masking. And
Mhm.
I have an exercise when I train that I do that helps people to kind of understand comprehension and how our kids can appear like they comprehend something because they know what to say.
Yeah.
in the moment, right? But they don't always comprehend it. And so when I was a legal guardian for a young man for a couple of years whose family hired me to do that, and I had brought him to an intake meeting for adult mental health case management. And he did a great job in this meeting and he paid attention, he focused, we came up with a case plan. And when we got in my car, I was driving him home. And I said, well, what do you think of that meeting? And I mean, he cussed all the time. He's like, I have no effing clue what you guys were talking about. And I was like, dude, you seemed really, you really seemed like you were getting it. And
Hmm.
he said something that was so profound. He said, I said whatever I thought you both wanted to hear so that meeting would be over. And
Yeah.
who doesn't feel like that? And I mean, these
Yeah.
poor kids have to sit through IEP meetings, case management meetings, intake for a new
Yeah.
therapy, all of these things, and they just feel so
Yeah.
dumb all the time, right?
And I think everybody knows innately how to nod their head or
Mhm.
say,
Yes.
uh-huh,
Yeah,
at the
we've all done
appropriate
that.
times
Yes.
in a
Yes.
conversation. And, but the conversation's just gone, psh,
Just goes right over
yeah.
the head.
Yeah.
Well, I called this case and I asked him a few questions, and he indeed did not comprehend his case plan. So I called the case manager and told her this, and she didn't believe me. She's like,
Mm,
"Oh, I don't think so, Barb. I think he's pulling your leg. Because he came off so competent." So then
hmm.
the next time we met with her, I would stop and say, "Okay, tell me what that means that you just agreed to." And then he'd cuss at me. He'd be like, "I don't know." And I'm like, dude, it doesn't mean you're dumb. It means we need to explain this in a different way that will work for your brain.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a couple of things in that meeting, and afterwards that case manager, to her credit, said, "Okay, I see what you're saying." And I said, "Good thing, because guaranteed over half of your caseload, if not the majority of your caseload,
Hmm.
is doing the same thing all the time."
Yeah.
And this is why, like families that come into child protection when their kids go into foster care, right? And the birth
Hmm.
families, the first families have a case plan then, and all of these things that they
Hmm.
have to do in order to get their children home. A lot of times, those families are doing that same thing and are not
Exactly.
comprehending because a lot of them likely have an undiagnosed
Yeah.
FASD or other traumas that
Yeah.
impacted their brains.
Yeah.
And so and if they were struggling with substance use, which that would have probably been the case if
Hmm.
their kids have an FASD, suspected or diagnosed, they go through treatment, they get
Yeah.
clean, the kids come back home, and now we haven't trained that first family on how to parent these kids differently.
Right.
And they're
Right.
using the typical consequence punitive strategies. They're using
Right.
timeouts, they're using sticker charts, and the kids are
Yeah.
exploding and the kids
Yeah.
are escalating and the parents start to decline and go back into
Relapse.
and
Hmm.
relapse and the kids back in
Yeah.
in and out of the system.
And
So
round it goes.
we've got to get
Yeah.
our child welfare and child protection system to wake up to
Yeah.
that so that because we just keep causing extra trauma to kids
Hmm.
when we don't recognize this
Yeah.
and support and train
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on my soapbox, aren't I?
Well, I think there's plenty of room on that soapbox for both of us.
Oh yeah, we're out there together, Patty.
So, what all are you hoping that your new business will, where do you want to spend your most energy?
Oh, I loved my job at Families Rising. I really loved it,
Yeah.
but I had to train on tons of topics, right? FASD was by far the one I did the most because that's my area of expertise and what I'm passionate about, and it's what I pushed the most.
Yeah.
But I had to train on lots of other
Yeah.
topics too that I also actually did really enjoy, but it wasn't my passion.
Yeah.
That's a big reason why I am starting up, my business, FASD Mosaic. And my favorite thing to do is to train. You
Yeah.
put me in front of a group of people. I don't care who they are.
Yeah.
I don't care if they're
Me too. And I
professionals.
never figured that out until my
I
50s.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I don't know how because I got a D in college speech. But I think I'm a pretty good trainer. Or even virtually. I love doing virtual training. It's not my favorite. I'd way rather be in front of a group of
Me
people.
too. The
But
energy is so different.
the energy is very different
Yeah.
and you can just get deeper and but I will
Yeah.
do virtual because it really does make sense often. But
Yeah.
that is my favorite thing to do. I
Yeah.
absolutely love training and I
Yeah.
love trying to help any adults, no matter if they're professionals or caregivers, to kind of have those aha moments and be like,
Hmm.
"Oh my gosh, wow."
We should explore tag teaming. as
Totally.
trainers.
Yeah. It's
Oh
really
my
fun.
gosh, would that be fun?
Totally.
That would be a
Totally.
blast.
I do like the coaching too. I've
Hmm.
actually found that I like group coaching more than individual coaching because I just see so much value in the collective
Yeah,
mind, the collective
yeah.
hive of having a group of people doing it. But
Well,
individual coaching, there's a time and a place where that's really powerful too.
yeah. Well, I think the beauty of group coaching or even group training is
Mhm.
one person has the aha and talks
Mhm.
about that, and that in itself will provide an aha to another parent,
Yes. Oh, exactly.
and it just
Exactly.
it's like a ping pong ball going all over the
Mhm.
place.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So I got my initial FASD training at Facets,
Mhm.
right, which is now Facets Center for Neurodiversity,
Yep.
but a wonderful rebrand that they've
Right.
done.
Yep.
But and I took that because I was so tired of the kids on my caseload falling between the cracks, going from home to home to home, and so tired of parents that I had trained and others had trained feeling ill prepared
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
quitting
Yes.
when they were still so badly needed.
Right. Right.
Um, and it's heartbreaking all around. And so I thought, well, okay, I want to learn more. And so first I did TBRI, trust-based relational intervention.
Mhm.
And that was like, wow, this
Yeah.
is so powerful. But then the more I worked with it and the more I trained it, the more I realized this is good,
Hmm.
but there's something missing.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
something missing. And
Yeah.
then I did facets. It was like, aha.
Yeah.
But it was in that process that I learned at 56 that I am on the spectrum.
That's the age I got diagnosed with it too.
Same age?
Yeah. Well, I'm
Good.
56 right now, and I got my
Okay.
diagnosis this past April in 2025.
Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
I got mine was officially confirmed last summer.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
about a year and a half ago. How did you come to, I mean, because you knew about FASD from
Yep.
raising an adopted child with FASD.
Yes.
Tell
Yes.
me about that journey for you.
Well, so for me, we figured out when Keela, our daughter, who is our one diagnosed with FASD, who gives me permission to talk about her story, certain parts of her story, I can't share it all,
Yeah.
but she was diagnosed at age 6 when I finally figured out. I was the one who figured it out. We were on our third therapist and begging everybody for help, and
Nothing like a mom
mhm,
to
yep.
turn into a researcher.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was, 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And my mother was still alive. She actually passed away 20 years ago. And so she was sick with cancer actually when I was figuring this out about Akila. And I remember saying to her, I think I finally figured out what's going on with Akila. And I told her I think she has this thing called Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. And, I'm telling her what it is. And she goes, well, Barb, I drank when I was pregnant with you and you're fine. And I was like, wow, we dodged a bullet. Thank goodness. But then as I'm diving into it, I'm reading every book I could get my hands on, which back then, 20 years ago, there weren't that many. There's
Right.
definitely more coming out now, finally. But there weren't a ton. But I read books, I started connecting, I started going to conferences, and even then there weren't that many. This was kind of before there was much online training stuff even.
Hmm. Hmm.
But as I'm learning about it, and eventually I started volunteering for Proof Alliance, which is a
Hmm.
Minnesota-based FASD organization,
Hmm.
and I was a volunteer in their speakers bureau. So now I'm training on it, and just as the years are going by, it just kind of started to hit me. Wait a minute. I have a lot of these symptoms, right? I struggle with a lot of the same things,
Yeah.
maybe not as intensely or as extremely as my daughter does, for example, but I still have a lot of struggles. And
Yeah.
so, many years ago, realized I think I am on the spectrum. And a lot of times when I train, especially when I have a decent amount to train, right? One of my other pet peeves is like people been like, yeah, can you do this training in 45 or 60 minutes? And I'm like, are you kidding
No.
me? Are you kidding me? Or even 2 or 3 hours is hard to get enough in. But when I have a full day, I will talk
Yeah.
about that I think I'm on the spectrum and I will talk about my symptoms. So I've been doing that for many years now. But
Hmm.
then, and I've in the back of my head, I've been saying for years, I got to just go try to get my own diagnosis. But it's also complicated for adults to get, it's
It
complicated to get
is.
a diagnosis for kids
Yeah.
because the diagnostic capacity is not where it needs to be in the United States.
Yeah.
But for adults, it's even more complicated. There are
Yeah.
very few clinics that will actually do this for
Yeah.
adults. And so
Yeah.
I am very close with Tamara Cayo, who is the FASD person here in Florida. She's the director
Hmm.
of the FASD clinic at the Florida Center.
Yeah.
And
We were in the same cohort at FASD.
for Bass, that's nice.
Yeah,
Well, so
she's wonderful.
I just finally was like, Tamara, can one of your doctors can Carrie do this? And so she hooked
Yeah.
me up and got me in there at the Florida Center. I went, I think I had my testing last March and got the
Hmm.
diagnosis in April. Mhm.
Yeah, it's amazing that little bits and pieces will continue to fall into place,
Yes, yes.
right?
Oh, apps.
I
It just started to answer questions. Hmm.
Yeah. How long was it between when you recognized you had a lot of the symptoms yourself and when your mom's comment came, out of the memory banks and into the
Right.
forefront of your mind?
Right. Honestly, the memory of her saying that, I probably just remembered that about 5 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Again, I started to realize at least 10 years ago that I'm on the spectrum too.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I kind of remember, I actually remember where we were at in my house, even when I was having that conversation with her. You know how you have those
Hmm.
weird things that all of a sudden you remember. So yeah, it was about 5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just made so much sense. I'm horrible at math and science. I changed my major 3 times in college to avoid
I
math,
changed
science,
more than that.
economics, and political science. I hate all four of those subjects, right? And I mean, it just started to make so much more
Yeah.
sense for me.
I
And
had like 100 credits when I started my junior year.
Right. When I eventually at the University of Minnesota created my own degree, a Bachelor of Individualized Studies, I found that program and I was like, oh, it's the answer to all of my problems because you took 3 subject areas and
Yeah.
you wrote your own proposal for a degree and I had all
Yeah.
these English credits because I thought
Yeah.
I was going to be an English teacher and then I was like, well, who am I kidding? I can't sit still in a classroom. Then I switched to sociology, but there was all this economics and political science. Then I
Yeah.
found these great classes, this great program called Youth Studies at the U of M there. But even in that degree, the degree was called a Bachelor in Human Ecology with an
Mhm.
emphasis in youth studies back then, and there was political science and economics. So I had these classes I loved, but I'm like that. So I took those 3 subject areas and I wrote a proposal for my own
Mhm.
for a degree, and that was how I bypassed and made some
Yeah.
accommodations without even knowing I
Yeah.
was for myself.
Yeah. Oh, I went from business to nursing.
Mm,
Well, one of the areas that we struggle with oftentimes is the inability to recognize people's true intentions,
mhm,
to recognize risk.
mm,
And I ended up being assaulted and discovering pain. And it
mm.
was, my diabetes had me in the hospital a lot
Right, right.
for management, but it was always vacation.
Hmm.
I'm out of school and I'm playing cards with the nurses. I'm having a good time. I can
Yes,
sleep whenever I want.
yes.
It was, but that taught me suffering. And so
Mhm.
I switched to nursing.
Yeah.
But memory is an issue.
Hmm.
And at this particular nursing program, you had to memorize everything about the meds you're giving, including the drawing of the chemical compound.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Why, I don't know.
No, thank you. Making my stomach churn right now.
Right? And so and plus the other reason why I washed out of nursing was I had had diabetes for 20 years at that point and started getting a lot of the complications, one of which is chronic pain. called neuropathy. I mean, you can't watch TV without seeing commercials for it.
Yes.
And I couldn't be on my feet as much as nursing. So
Oh,
I thought,
sure.
well, I
Yeah.
still want to help people.
Hmm.
So I jumped ship again. So
Yeah.
this will be third school over to the community college. And I thought, well, let me try nuclear medicine. They make really good money for 2 years of school. That was very appealing. So I dove in. Yeah, I don't like physics. I'm
Me
no good
either.
at physics. That was it. And they're on their feet even more than nurses.
Uh-huh. Right?
So that was a wasted year. And then
Mhm.
I did social work technology, right?
Yep.
I did the whole degree in one semester.
Funny.
And because I had so many credits already.
Right.
But that was a go. And then I transferred to the 4 year school and social work and psychology and graduated with, well, like I said, I had over 100 credits when I started my junior year, got
Right.
another 60 some
Hmm.
in the last 2 years. So yeah,
Yeah.
I, I have my piled high and deep degree. If you just go by number of credits, they're just not coordinated. Oh goodness. Yeah, what an adventure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what so you still want to keep training
Hmm.
and coaching. It's a nice blend. I enjoy it.
Me too.
I hope things take off in your neck of the woods faster than they have for me. And I think they may because you're in Minnesota, right?
I live in Florida now. I moved to
Oh,
Florida
you
from
moved to
Minnesota.
Florida.
Yeah, three
Okay.
years ago I moved. Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I can't, I was going to say your business may take off because people in Minnesota seem to be on the know, in the know.
Well, Minnesota, in my opinion, is the most FASD competent state in the country because Proof Alliance has done such
Hmm.
phenomenal work over the last
Yeah.
couple of decades. And so
Yeah. You
I
guys in
do,
Alaska.
yeah, yeah. I do still do a lot of work in Minnesota. I have two kids there, so I'm in Minnesota a lot. And
Hmm.
so I do end up probably doing a lot of coaching and training for Minnesota families still, even from afar. Mhm.
Hmm. Well, I haven't found my peeps in here in North Dakota yet.
Yeah. You've got Carl, like the only other one I know of
Oh,
is Carl.
Carl is awesome.
Carl is amazing. Carl Young is awesome.
He is awesome.
Yeah, and it's so sad though that Larry Bird has retired, the
Yeah.
doctor in North
Yeah.
Dakota who's been a wonderful FASD advocate. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going
Yeah.
to fault him for it, obviously.
Right? At,
It's
at
always
some
hard to
point, we
lose.
all deserve to
Yes,
hang
it's
up our
just hard
shingle.
to lose some of these FASD rock stars. It's really
Yeah.
hard. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I am so glad you came on to the show, and I look forward to collaborating with you more in the future.
yeah, me too. I'm happy to
So,
be here.
yeah. So you have your own book coming out
Oh, yes.
in
Yep.
October. Do you have a author copy that you can show off?
I don't. I don't
Oh,
yet.
bummer. Okay. Well, in that case,
I do not. It depends.
let's share with the audience the goodies
Yeah,
about your
so
book.
the book is called Raising Kids and Teens with FASD. I actually keep saying though, I think it's going to be helpful for anybody that has kids with neurodivergence, to be honest, kind of
Yes.
like Facets has done. We realize a
Yeah.
lot of the strategies that we have created and had success with in the FASD community are strategies that should be used for kids with trauma and neurodivergence.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and it will be helpful for professionals too. It publishes on October 21st of 2025.
Hmm.
And I'm assuming in September I'll probably get an author copy. But
Okay.
it's the publishing company, Jessica Kingsley Publishers, are located over in London. And so there
Okay.
are a lot of the staff are on holiday, as they say it across the pond. So
Yes.
I'm waiting for a couple of them, their marketing department, to get back to get some more information on that and how that's going to work. But it is available for pre-sale now on Amazon and Barnes and
Okay.
Nobles and all of the places where you can get books.
Okay. Okay. So that means you're also going through Ingram, right? Because Barnes and Nobles and most of those booksellers order their copies through Ingram Sparks
I
instead
believe
of,
so.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean the things, the thing I think that in this book that I think that, families and professionals would find helpful is that there is a chapter on each of the really what I call the big three,
Mhm.
raging, lying, and stealing. Those
Yeah.
I think are the three big behaviors that cause the biggest stress within a family unit and within or a
Yeah.
school system or a program or whatever it is. And so I have a chapter on each of those topics
Mm.
and some concrete strategies of what not to do and what to do.
That the what not to do can be sometimes even more
Oh,
helpful
exactly. We
than the
have to
what to
talk
do,
about that. We have
right?
to talk about the what not to do because most of the things that are what not to do are instinctive. The
Hmm.
instinctive reactions that we would have to raging or to lying
Yeah.
or to stealing.
Yeah,
And say
because
this
it's
with,
either
yes,
defaulting to traditional parenting
exactly.
approaches
Hmm.
or has
Logic.
triggered our own
Yes.
reactions.
And it's
Yeah,
logical too. Like,
yeah,
most of us parent from a place of logic, and you got to get rid of logic when you're talking about FASD because
yeah,
logic doesn't work very often.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I'm assuming that your chapter online gets into confabulation
Confabulation.
and all
Yes.
that jazz and
Yes,
walking people through
absolutely.
that. How
Absolutely.
would you say that has been most beneficial when you're talking with adults about teasing out?
About confabulation.
Are they being
Hmm.
dishonest
Right,
or
right,
are
right.
they just trying to fill in the blanks?
Well, what I do with confabulation and all of these various challenging behaviors that we can see with our kids is I like to compare it to any form of dementia, right? And I tell a story every time I train, I tell this story. Almost every podcast, I tell a story because I think it's powerful. I have a friend whose mother died from Alzheimer's and she was in memory care. And they all took turns in her family bringing her to church every Sunday. And one Sunday, it was the 21-year-old grandson brought grandma to church and they were Catholic. So during Mass, when it was communion time, the mother or grandma and grandson go up for communion. The priest gives the wafer to grandma and says, "Body of Christ." And grandma says, "I don't want that F and wrinkly wafer." Only she says the F bomb. And her grandson is super embarrassed. He's whispering, "Grandma, it's okay." And she's like, "F if it is," really loud. Priest gives her a different wafer. She thinks that one's even more effed up and has this huge F string of F bombs, right? She's escorted out of church by some people up in the front. So then my friend calls, tells me the story. We laugh hysterically because you have to laugh at some of these hard caregiver moments. That's how you survive sometimes is through humor. And she said to me something that changed my life. She said, "It reminds me a lot of your Aquila stories." And I was like, "Yeah, I
Mm,
got some doozies just like that, even at church."
yeah,
And so it started to
yeah,
make me think and to compare FASD and the behaviors that we can see common for these
yeah,
kids, the symptoms, to symptoms of any form of dementia, whether it's
yeah,
Alzheimer's, Lewy body, frontal
yeah,
temporal. And so, but
yeah.
the
Where
difference
there's no filter,
there's no filter, right? So, but here's the
no
difference.
filter.
The difference is we knew grandma or, somebody in memory care, we knew them before their brain was compromised by dementia, and we knew when their brain was
Yeah,
healthy, they never would have said the F-bomb to a priest.
yeah,
Our kids were born with this, and they
yeah,
deserve the same grace, patience, and understanding that we
yeah,
would give to somebody with
yeah.
dementia or somebody with an acquired or traumatic
Hmm.
brain injury. We can also see
Hmm.
things like that. And so, with dementia, we can see a lot of confabulation, but it's obvious to us that it's
Yeah,
not actual lying. It's
yeah,
the gaps of the memory filling it in with wrong
yeah.
information that you believe is true. And everybody's brain does it. We all
Right.
confabulate, but ours don't do it in some of the big fantastical ways that
We
some of
we
us
all
have.
had to back in the days before TiVo.
Oh, there you go.
You
Yeah.
know, we
Mhm.
we would run either to the kitchen or the bathroom for a bio break
Yeah.
on commercials,
Hmm.
hoping we could get back there in time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so often we didn't, and our brains had to go into overtime to figure out what did
Hmm.
we miss.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or would you have an argument with your significant other where you say, "Well, I told you this," and they say, "No, you didn't." You say, "Yes, I did." "No, you didn't."
yeah,
Yes, you go
yeah,
back and forth. Almost
yeah,
rarely is one of you lying, but
right.
one of your brains is confabulating and is filled. And to be honest, it's usually the person that thinks they told the other one something because you practiced it in your
Mhm.
brain and now your brain thinks that you
Yeah,
said it out
that it
loud.
was done.
That's how
Yeah,
healthier brains confabulate.
yeah,
Neurodivergent brains confabulate like that, and then they also confabulate with these big, goofy stories and things like
yeah.
that that are not even realistic.
The crazy lying.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was chuckling so hard with your story because I don't know if I mentioned to you in a previous phone call that I'm my mother's caretaker.
You did, yes. Yes.
I had to take her to the doctor last week.
She get a good one out?
Oh my goodness. She was so well behaved up to a point.
Sounds like
She's
kids.
sitting in the chair for a blood draw. They put the tourniquet, the tourniquet wasn't even on yet. She started yelling at the poor girl, "Why aren't you done yet? You
Um,
hole?" Like, and then
Yep.
she snarled her teeth like a dog. And I'm like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. The
Yeah,
similarities between the symptoms of FASD and
yeah,
dementia are
yeah,
really
yeah.
mind-blowing when you dig
Well,
in.
and that's why I have there's a chapter at the end of my book that's a call to action for researchers
Hmm.
because out of those 428 conditions that come along with FASD that we have not necessarily cause all those things, or that we will have all of those things or necessarily even any of them, but we have a higher likelihood of developing them.
Right, right.
Early onset dementia,
Hmm.
206 times the risk of early onset, but it doesn't specify what kind. And, I started looking at dementia years ago, because of my mom.
Yep.
And it's uncanny how
Hmm.
similar they are.
Oh, I
So
agree.
I
Hmm.
have no idea how
Hmm.
researchers would tease it apart.
Yes. Yes.
I,
Yeah. That's a
I,
complicated one.
yeah, I
It
have no
is.
clue.
Yeah. I have a brother who died suddenly last fall, and
Oh,
I think he had some dementia that had been setting in, and he suddenly died. Again, both of my siblings, we all have some weird medical problems. I just had my 17th surgery. There's lots of things that I can see in my family and in my siblings where it is obvious that we were all impacted by that prenatal alcohol
mm-hmm,
exposure in
mm-hmm.
lots of different ways.
Yeah, yeah, because it alcohol doesn't discriminate about
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
developing system in our body it's going to
Right,
affect.
right. Yep.
If it's still developing, it is particularly vulnerable, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our brains just have more vulnerability than the rest because they're constantly
Hmm.
developing. I can't remember which episode I was talking about this on, but my mom, her her favorite infant baby story about me is that I always took so long eating. Have a gulp or two, fall asleep. She'd have to wake me up, and it would take hours, almost until it's time for the next feeding.
Uh-huh.
And and it's like, well, yeah,
Now you know
I
why.
was getting drunk. Of course I was falling asleep because
Yep.
she was continuing to drink. I mean, it was the
Right.
60s. Nobody knew any better.
Right. Right.
So,
Hmm. Yep. It was putting you to sleep.
oh, mercy. Well, I hope that we can find ways of collaborating together on many things. I think we will have so much fun together.
That would be fun.
But I'm delighted you were able to come on Living with FASD. Anything else you want to share with the audience before we let you go?
Oh, I don't think so. I just want to thank you for putting on such a good podcast. I've been enjoying it for years, so thank you for
Oh,
having me
thank you. Yeah, it's you got to be kidding me. The stop recording button moved again.
on. Dang person.
I'm not going to swear this time.
Oh,
But
that.
But I'm so glad that I learned how to laugh at myself even before I knew I had FASD.
Yeah, that helps.
Makes
Humor is
all
what
the
helped me
difference.
survive.
Hmm.
Humor is what has done it for me.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you
Thanks,
again for
Patty.
your time, and everyone will see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Living with FASD with Barb Clark. I certainly had a good time. Come back in 2 more weeks for another candid conversation, this time with Dr. Jared Brown as we talk about neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to change and heal and grow. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast so that more people will find it and learn about fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. See you next time for another candid conversation.